just noticed I've watched that intro so many times. I've just noticed for the first time that when Michelangelo is standing in the sewers and they throw knives and things, and he swats them away with his nunchucks. One guy throws a grenade at him, and Michael's like, "Yeah, I don't care about grenades." He just swats it away with his nunchucks. Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Probably the definition of a Saturday morning cartoon. There are several iterations of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Some are good, some are bad, and many fans growing up have plenty to say about what version is best, what you should watch, blah blah blah, etc. etc. But today on Animania, I would like to talk to you people about for people who've never seen the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before. There are 4 turtles and a rat. They crawl into a strange chemical ooze and become mutant man-sized creatures. Splinter teaches them to be a ninja. Leonardo leads. Donatello does machines. Raphael is cool. Michelangelo is a party dude. They're all named after the 4 of the most famous Italian Renaissance artists, and they defend New York City and the world at times against the biggest threats in that come their way. And they love pizza. Cowabunga. It's been going on 35 years, and many different creators have had their fingers on Turtles and had their mark that they've made on the franchise. But these 2 movies, the characters actually stay quite true to one another, and they stay quite consistent. And you don't get many inconsistencies between the 2. So if you like the original movie and you haven't touched Turtles for a while, you can watch TMNT. So she gets actually quite a good character arc in a lot of these. And also the banter she has with Casey Jones is quite similar between the 2 movies. Where Casey Jones, we'll talk about him more later, but in other portrayals it's almost he's such an intricate part of the team in the first movie. When you watch other stuff, you kind of like Casey Jones doesn't know them, and it's kind of jarring sometimes. But in these 2 movies, it's pretty much the same Casey Jones, so you won't have that disconnect there. It's vagrous. Fun fact, the original comic had all the turtles with red headbands. The first show introduced the colours-coded headbands. They did, and the reason they did that is because of the toys. So in the original comic, all the turtles looked like Raphael, and because they wanted to sell toys, they changed the headbands to justify why you would buy 4 turtles rather than just 1. So that's why they added the headbands. There's going to be a lot of love for Raphael, isn't there? Rob likes the original Chandler Raphael. Lisa likes Raphael. Mistress Puff likes Raphael. A few Mikeys in there. Well, my favourite is Leonardo. No, that's not boring, and I'll explain why. He's a classic hero type. He tries to do things the right way. He's got a strong sense of justice and discipline, often criticised for staying too true to the rules and being too serious. But the reason I like Leo is because he's the perfect example that being a hero is actually really hard. A lot of people like the edgy anti-heroes because they walk the line between good and bad, and that can be more interesting for some. But I find that's the easy way out. If you can just turn on a dime of whether you want to kill someone or not because you're edgy, that's just copping out. That is where a true hero like Leonardo is the one who constantly he knows the right path, and that's the hard path, but he sticks to it. That's why I like Leo. For example, there's a guy who's being a jerk, and every fibre of your being says you need to put this guy in his place and punch him out because he's being a douche. And you'd probably do it, and people would applaud you. But the right thing to do is to walk away. That's the big hero type thing to do. And that's the kind of thing Leo does. He goes, that would be too easy. I'm gonna man up. I'm gonna do the right thing and walk away from this situation. And I like that. I think that's kind of cool. I think that's a good role model kind of style to be in real life. So that's why I like Leo. It's not easy being the good guy. Besides that, his flaw to put all responsibility on his own shoulders builds the most interesting story arcs for this character. As he knows he's the leader, so therefore it's all on him. People don't like Leo. I know, but you're wrong. I like Leo. I think he's quality. 8-year-old Sarah screaming at you, Bill. Leo sucks. Grab some edginess. See you guys taking the easy way out. That's it's difficult being the good guy. It's difficult being the good guy. But yeah, I think that's another great thing about the Turtles. We can all agree it's a great show, but no one can ever agree on who's the best turtle, unless it's Raphael, and then apparently you're right. So let's talk about Raphael, shall we? He is pretty much everyone's favourite, Raphael, because he's quick to anger, he speaks his mind, he's not afraid to head straight into a fight, he's a superb fighter, probably the best fighter out of the team because he just has no restraint. He fights with anger, which does get him into trouble, but does make him the strongest. And he likes to fix problems himself and not rely on the rest of the team, which does get him into trouble, especially in the 2 movies I'm talking about. He clashes often with Leo, which I suppose is why Leo gets a lot of hate, because Leo's a goody-goody two-shoes and Raphael's the cool, edgy one. So that's why people, if you're a Raphael fan, you don't tend to like Leo, which I understand. Between these 2 movies, though, they continue the story arc of Raphael and Leonardo's relationship. And it takes centre stage throughout both of these. So this sibling rivalry between the 2 is very gripping. Where they're constantly fighting because they have different views of the world, and they just can't get on because they are parallels of each other. On to Donatello. He's the shyest one of the group, the guy with the purple bandana in the back. He's the tech head, and a lot of his jokes, again, across these 2 films, rely on him trying to be cool, and not quite finding the right words, not quite saying the right thing, and the rest of the team trying to say, try again, not quite this time, that kind of stuff. And in the 2007 movie, he actually gets a lot of the biggest laughs from me, because he actually, to pay the bills for the team, he becomes a tech support guy, and I do some of that at my own work, so that did make me chuckle when he does that. Yeah, Michelangelo's perhaps a lot of the other most popular turtle. He's carefree. He's the original dude. He just wants to chill out and have pizza. I can respect that. The youngest of the brothers, the most complex subjects go right over his head, and you can rely on Mikey to lighten the mood when things get too dark, and the severity of the situation is lightened because of his complete lack of understanding of what's going on. Donnie and Mikey's bond, again, through the 2 movies, are very similar and quite, they're quite mirrored in the way that they get on. But what should we say? Yeah, where Leo and Raph are bickering, Donnie and Mike will probably sort of say, well, we'll leave those guys to it. We've seen this happen a lot. We're used to this. They'll eventually work it out. Let's go get some pizza and chill out while they're just arguing backwards and forwards, which is kind of cool. They'll go chill out and play video games while those 2 are shouting at each other. So going on to Casey Jones and April. Now, I love Casey Jones. I think he's such a great idea for a character. He basically uses sports equipment as weapons. So yeah, Casey Jones and April's dynamic in this, though, is great over the first 2 movies. They're classic opposites attract kind of comparison, but his relationship with Raph is both funny as well as where perhaps Leo is too proud to help Raph deal with his anger, and very matter of fact, you just shouldn't be this way, Raphael. Raphael's trying to figure out why he's so angry all the time, or why he is the way he is. Casey's kind of like the voice of reason to sort of talk him through that rage, almost like he's done it as well when he was in his teenage years and he's sort of got through it. Which is kind of cool to have that relationship. And again, it starts in the first movie and it carries on in this TMNT continuation. April is very much a story driver for a lot of it, but in these 2 movies, in a very good and positive way, in my opinion. A lot of what she does drive the plot, but her intel often gives the turtles an edge, and it thankfully leaves it at that. So she finds something out that's going to help the turtles, and that's it. She doesn't go and not to too greater effect. The story doesn't revolve around her, which I think was my biggest problem with the Michael Bay movies. It is called TMNT after all, so it should be about the turtles, not about the side characters as much. Still, she does get a push in these movies, and Her tenacity shines through to keep her interesting. And by the end of the TMNT movie, she does get like a ninja suit and joins the combat, which I thought was quite cool. The fact that she's been around the Turtles for quite some time, she wouldn't be the kind of character that would stand on the sidelines. She would want to learn martial arts, and she kind of gets that moment where she's learnt martial arts from the boys, and now she's pulling her weight, which I think is cool, little aspect to the character. Where Casey Jones comes back in other series where April and Casey don't know each other. I love the fact that this movie harkens back to the original and kind of keeps that relationship going and sees how they've got on, because I think that's what gives Casey a grounded effect and not just a guy with a hockey mask and a baseball bat. The 2007 movie respects the conclusion of the 1990 movie by exploring what happens to the Foot Clan after the events of the first film, and ignores much of what happened in all of the other Turtles media. So anything that doesn't quite make sense, these two movies kind of lock together those two stories. So you don't need to worry too much about other Turtle media to sort of catch you up on what happened with the Foot Clan. We've also got Max Winters and his brothers and sister, which is a new bad guy from far as I know in the 2007 TMNT movie. And at first, nostalgia eyes made me think this character was lame and his story arc was lame. But after watching it, it's like a second time, he's kind of cool. And I understand why they wanted a different bad guy and a new story besides, the Turtles stop the Foot Clan again, and retreading old material from other media. But the movie acts like it's a big surprise that he's the bad guy, and it really isn't. It's quite obvious what's going to happen for the most part. But basically, he's an immortal businessman who was once a great and fearsome warrior. He was looking for power with his army, with his brothers and sister that led his armies along with him. They tried to conquer the Earth, and then they were cursed, which turned all of his family to stone and made him immortal. And then centuries later, he had to wait centuries to try and break the curse. He's built up this massive empire. He's searching for these statues of his brethren and his family, and he's going to look to break the curse. And that's kind of what the story is driven by on this one. And April's kind of reporting on these ancient finds of these statues, which is where they all come together. I think these two movies alone are small enough piece for you to see if you like Turtles. They're concise enough to not have to take an exam to figure out what's going on or who these characters are. And it might even be a good way for you to get back into Turtles. Anybody who watched the original film when I was a kid, it's still a fun movie. It's still a good time. And the follow-up movie over there is also kind of cool to sort of go back to and have a look. Who's in this? Chris Evans, Captain America does a voice in here. He's Casey Jones. Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Patrick Stewart, he does a voice in here. Lawrence Fishburne, Jack Black. There's a very impressive voice cast in the CG movie, so that's pretty good. And even though it's old, the original movie where they're all guys in suits, it still looks more real. That they kind of exist in this world, and I still think it holds up. So whether you're going with the CG style, or whether you're going with like kind of live action, I think these two movies do that quite well. Commitment to watching both of these movies are no moderate. 2 hour-and-a-half long movies, one live action, which I thought was really impressive, especially back when this movie was made, to take the Turtles, which is a cartoon show, comic / toy line, and put guys in suits and actually make them have some sort of reality where they had weight to themselves and stuff like that. And I still think it holds up. Where they there's a couple of janky bits where their mouths move, and when they're eating pizza, and you're kind of like, that looks a bit odd. But for the most part, it's actually quite good. And God, did they do a good job doing kicks and stuff in that movie. The pace is probably an argumentative point on this scorecard, because you might think the pace is very quick, but the reason I put it in as average is that there are some Turtle fans that just want to see the Turtles kick butt. And these two shows slow it down to talk about the relationship between the brothers and their struggles about being teenagers, because it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's not just Ninja Turtles. The animation is good. Some of the portrayals of some of the characters might be too cartoony for some if they want more of a realism, especially after watching the first movie. But each character is given enough cool bits to do. And I do think that the new bad guys are kind of interesting. If only they expanded more on some of the individual characters, but they didn't have enough time to sort of go into their backstories quite so much. But the animation is pretty solid in the CG movie, and unlike dated CGI, the real puppets and the costumes of the other turtles actually holds up as far as I'm concerned. So animation is good across the board. Voice acting is very good. Like I said, the stellar cast of the CGI TMNT movie is outstanding. Maybe they didn't know what they had back then, but having all those voices lent to a project is quite impressive these days. And even in the original one, the actors I think are well cast and bring a lot of personality to the roles. I love the guy who played Casey Jones. I think he did a really good job, and Chris Evans, Captain America, continues that quite well into the new one. Not quite as snarky and New York-esque, but he does still get some laughs and kind of down-to-earth feel to him. So the voice acting is quite good across the board. And finally, the ending is again average. The first movie ends, I think, in a very iconic way, and I got no gripes with the first one's ending. But the CGI movie is kind of matter of fact. You kind of predict where the story's going quite early, even though the characters don't. And it does end in a big battle, and everything kind of gets tidied up quite nicely in a bow. And I kind of wanted it to hit a bit harder like the first movie did. So it's nothing special, but you're not going to be left kind of going, huh, why? These two movies for me are a good portrayal of the characters, where you might actually go, oh, I see, this is what the Turtles could be, so you might like them. Rob says, if you were coated in mutagen, what would you turn into? Don't know. You got to sort of turn into a mutant, don't you? Whenever I used to draw characters growing up, I always used to have this thing about platypus. I don't know why. I just had this green platypus I used to draw. So maybe a platypus. I don't know.